Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Soul Land 2 episode number 99 based on novel. So let's start. Steam started to rise from Hua Yuhao's body. This was the result as ultimate ice clashed with ultimate fire. Right now, he seemed to be intoxicated and didn't appear to feel anything. He cupped some of the spring water in his hands and brought it to his face. Mist started to rise from his palms. Even though he had ultimate ice to protect his body, he had no intention of protecting himself. Blisters started to surface on his hands. They were like cooked shrimp at this point, burning red. Donga, my love for you is pure. I will succeed. He knelt down beside the sunspring and lifted his head and hands as the plants all looked at him. Before Wang Chao could grab hold of him, he swallowed the spring water. A red gust rose from his head, and a layer of thick icy fog was unleashed from his body. Wang Chao's hand was pushed away by this layer of fog. Hua Yuhao didn't stop. His face had already turned completely red, and he looked like a drunk. However, he still managed to focus and activate the instant teleportation from his left leg soul bone. A golden light flashed, and he teleported all the way back to the black stone, arriving in front of the yearning heartbroken grass. His eyes had already turned red at this point. However, there was a satisfied smile on his face. However, this look of satisfaction appeared a little weird on his red face. However, it also seemed a little sacred. No, you will die. Wang Chao cried. She also activated her instant teleportation, but she wasn't teleported as far as Hua Yuhao. She was too late. She watched as Hua Yuhao slapped his chest for the second time. She saw him spewing blood from his mouth. His blood landed on the yearning heartbroken grass. At this instant, time seemed to have stood still. Wang Chao collapsed onto the ground, and tears flowed down her face. At this moment, she couldn't imagine what he had been through. At the same time, she also felt that her heart had broken. Hua Yuhao. Wang Chao was crying sorrowfully. She was crying sorrowfully with her eyes shut. However, Hua Yuhao's eyes were wide open. He was staring at the white flower and his own blood. The ice melted. As his blood fused together, it started to seep into the flower. A layer of pure and holy light shone from the flower and engulfed Hua Yuhao. It was shaking slightly, as if it were struggling. The blood of sorrow on the petal started to fade. Even though it looked very delicate, all the flowers surrounding the icefire yin-yang well closed and drooped when it broke free from the black stone. This included the delicate silk immortal, the blazed delicate apricot, the star anise mysterious icegrass and the wonderloft chrysanthemum. They were like subjects bowing down to their king. The small, white flower drifted quietly in front of Hua Yuhao and stuck closely to his cheek. It was as if it had found its lover, and was exuding a jade glow. Hua Yuhao's expression turned a little silly. Even though his hands were filled with blisters and looked as if they were melting, and even though blood was coming out of the pores of his body before turning into ice flakes, he still smiled in deep satisfaction. He opened his mouth and wanted to say something. However, his throat had been scalded by the blazing sunspring water. His voice was very hoarse, but it was possible to tell what he was trying to say by reading his lips. Donga, I have succeeded. The white flower stuck closely to his face and didn't fall off. The glow that came from it was still flashing, as if it was soothing his hurt body. Hua Yuhao's body shook slightly, and he almost fell down. He forcefully twisted his head to look at Wang Chao. There was a pleading look on his face. Wang Chao had just crawled up from the ground. At this moment, she didn't dare to reject him no matter how aloof and sad she was. All right, I promise. Wang Chao muttered as she cried. Hua Yuhao's lips moved. Fresh blood flowed from his body. His body was slowly collapsing to the ground. Before he completely collapsed, he forced his head to one side so that the yearning heartbroken grass wouldn't touch the ground. He was afraid of crushing the delicate flower. No, he was afraid of crushing Wang Dong's hope. Wang Chao walked towards Hua Yuhao slowly. His body crashed irregularly to the ground. Fresh blood continued to stream from his mouth and nose. His life was slowly diminishing. The flesh on his hands had mostly melted off, and his bones could almost be seen. An intense chill was surging through his body. It was about to blow him apart. His about to die. His really about to die. Wang Chao's heart was trembling. She turned around suddenly to look at the delicate silk immortal. What can save him? What can save him? She was almost shouting hysterically. As she spoke, she lifted Hua Yuhao up and rushed in front of the delicate silk immortal. The delicate silk immortal's voice was also filled with sorrow. His hurt too badly. The spring water that he swallowed has already burned his throat, windpipe and even his heart. He didn't activate the ultimate ice in his body to resist the scorching spring water. Because of this, the blood that he spat out was burning. It's really blood from his heart. He is the best human I've ever seen. His stubbornness towards love isn't inferior to that of Tang San and Xiao Wu. Stop spouting nonsense now. Can you save him? If he dies, I'll bury all of you here with him. Wang Chao's face was stained with tears. However, an indescribable force was unleashed from her body at this instant. Her powdery blue hair quickly turned golden and flew up behind her back. Her sky blue eyes also turned golden. She released an indescribable aura from her body. Golden light rapidly spread from her body, and everything that surrounded her was dyed gold. The plant started to tremble in deep fear. Stop, please stop first. The delicate silk immortal was shuddering as she spoke. Wang Chao said coldly, he dies, I die, everyone dies. The golden light stopped spreading momentarily. Every word from her mouth was very determined. She was so determined that it was terrifying. The delicate silk immortal was a little stunned as she said, his lover doesn't seem to be you. Wang Chao said coldly, is this related to what I asked? It's not important whether he loves me. However, I have realized that I love him. Since he can give up his life for her, I can also do the same thing. Do you really have no way of saving him? If you don't, I have a plan. However, all of you will die if I use this plan. The delicate silk immortal sighed and said, initially, there was no way. However, there might be a chance since you love him so much. Unless you can, Shrek Academy, Sea God's Lake, Sea God's Island, Sea God's Pavilion. The golden tree exuded a gentle aura of life. However, there seemed to be something different within this gentle aura of life. Wang Dong was seated quietly in Huo Yuhao's room. The window was open, and she could see the thick vegetation outside. But right now, everything seemed grey within her eyes. She had been seated here for a day and night. She didn't move the entire time. Over the past 10 days, she and her partners had combed the entire academy and Shrek City. They had even searched a region in the Great Stardow Forest. However, there wasn't any news of him. Wang Dong's eyes were a little swollen. She had cried a countless number of times. When she discovered that he had disappeared with Wang Chao, she had been filled with rage apart from the heart-chilling cold. Did he betray me? No, Yu Hao wouldn't do that. These two thoughts appeared alternately in her mind. Niu Tian wouldn't have expected that the pouch he gave to Wang Dong would also become a test for her. The test was tormenting her. The initial rage and chill started to change as time passed. Her rage intensified. She couldn't wait to find him and grab his collar before interrogating him as to why he left, and why he left with Wang Chao. Is it really because I'm not good enough, and she loves you more than I do? The rage even caused her to lose her rationality. However, what happened after her rage vanished? After her rage vanished, she was only left with fear. Before this, she hadn't expected that she would one day lose Huo Yuhao. However, she really had lost him this time. She had discovered that she couldn't live without him. Without him, her entire world turned grey and lifeless. After the rage subsided, it was replaced with an indescribable sense of yearning. At this point, Wang Dong only had one thought in her head. As long as you return, I won't probe further. I believe that you love me. Yu Hao, please come back. At that moment, she started crying. She was so heartbroken that she cried for an entire night. When she crawled up the next morning, she continued to look for him. It was only yesterday that she felt a little hopeless when she returned to the Sea God's Pavilion. Her mindset had changed once again. Yu Hao, come back. If you come back, I won't be angry as long as you are well, alive and fine no matter what your choice is. If you still love me, I'm willing to share you with her. Yu Hao, come back, please come back. I'm waiting for you. No matter how long it takes, I'll wait for you. As a result, she went back to his room and sat there quietly. Bei Bei and the rest came over. Even Yang Shaozhe and Elder Xian visited her. However, Wang Dong didn't listen to any of their words. She was already completely immersed in her own world. There was only Huo Yuhao there. It was only after Huo Yuhao disappeared that she fully understood how deeply she loved him. She was scared that Huo Yuhao would be like Tang Ya and Ma Xiaodao, leaving without returning. Yu Hao, will you come back? No matter what you want, I'll promise it. Anything as long as you return. Tears started to flow down her face once again. Wang Dong stood up slowly and walked over in front of Huo Yuhao's bed. She quietly sat down before lying down on it. She hugged his pillow and sniffed the remnants of his scent on it. She was sobbing pitifully. So, loving someone is actually so tormenting and unforgettable. Yu Hao, do you know that? Where are you exactly? As long as you can come back fine, I'm willing to exchange my life. I just want to see you well, even if we can't get together. Sunlight shone into the room through the window, projecting the jagged shadows of trees into the room. The refreshing air the outside seeped into the room and gently diffused. Donga. At this moment, an anxious voice was calling out distantly. Wang Dong didn't move. Right now, she was completely immersed in Huo Yuhao's memory. The door opened, a purplish figure burst into the room and found Wang Dong after scanning the room momentarily. Dong, quickly get up. Yu Hao is back. The word Yu Hao was like a bell to Wang Dong. She instantly bounced up from the bed, and her emotionless eyes became vibrant again. She was looking at the equally ravishing lady that had rushed into the room. The lady who had rushed into the room was the fourth member of Shrek's 7 monsters, Jiang Nannan. Jiang Nannan had an outraged look on her face. Something seemed to have infuriated her. Really, is he really back? Wang Dong's voice was trembling slightly, as was her petite figure. Jiang Nannan couldn't stand her haggard look. She wanted to say something, but she stopped herself. Sister Nannan, is he really back? Tell me. Wang Dong grabbed onto her shoulder, and the anxiety in her eyes surged with the tears that flowed down uncontrollably. Jiang Nannan was still indignant as she told Wang Dong, yes, he's back. However, he came back with Wang Chao Huiyuhao, that scoundrel. I won't let him off. You treat him so nice, but he went out with Wang Chao. They just returned. I saw them outside the academy before I immediately rushed here to inform you. Dong, what are you doing? Don't go. That scoundrel. Before she could finish speaking, Wang Dong had already rushed out through the window. Her radiant butterfly goddess wings flapped open and carried her in the direction of Shrek Academy's gate. Jiang Nannan sighed and muttered to herself, more care, more trouble, more care, more trouble. Fortunately, I informed Bei Bei and the rest. Huiyuhao, you are a bastard. I won't let you off. Dong sacrificed so much for you, but you chose to be with another woman. As she spoke, she also quickened her footsteps. This was the Sea God's pavilion. She didn't dare to jump out of the window like Wang Dong had. She backtracked along her original route and left the Sea God's pavilion quickly, heading straight for the gate. Going straight all the way from Shrek Academy's gate would lead one to the shore of the Sea God's lake. Proceeding down the paths that wound along the shore would lead to the inner courtyard. There was also a statue at the end of each of these paths. At this moment, a tough-looking lady was surrounded in front of one of these statues. Bei Bei, He Kai-tu, Shu Sanxia, and Xiao Xiao all looked a little unfriendly. The person who was surrounded by them was Wang Chao, who had been missing for 10 days. She was carrying someone on her back, and that person was Huiyuhao. Huiyuhao looked very weird. He seemed to be asleep on her back, and was evidently not clad in his own clothing. His drooping hands were also wrapped up. There was a satisfied smile on his face, and there was even a white flower stuck closely to one side of his face. He appeared very strange. Make way. Wang Chao said coldly. Even Bei Bei, who was normally very refined, looked slightly infuriated now. Wang Chao, what happened to you? How? He went out with you? Wang Chao replied coldly. That's right, he went out with me. The two of you. How can the two of you? Xiao Xiao said righteously. Wang Chao scoffed. Why can't we? You. Xiao Xiao was so angry that her face turned red. She was about to rush up, but He Kai-tu pulled her arm back. They knew that Wang Chao's abilities were extraordinary. Xiao Xiao was likely to suffer if she attacked like that. Shu Sanxia said in a deep voice, Wang Chao, pass Huiyuhao to us. What happened to him? Why did you carry him back? Where did the two of you go? Wang Chao didn't answer his questions. Where's Wang Dong? Huiyuhao is back, but where is she? Are you trying to assert your authority over her? Xiao Xiao asked furiously. As she spoke, 2 yellow, 2 purple and 1 black soul ring rose from her feet. A black cauldron also subtly appeared. She was ready to attack now. Wang Chao was still fearless. Her eyes were extremely focused, and a dangerous aura was being exuded from her body. Bei Bei said unkindly, Wang Chao, Yuhao's disappearance must be related to you, even though we don't know what happened. If you are unwilling to hand him over, don't blame us for being unkind. He was a little worried about Huiyuhao's condition. With his cultivation, how could he possibly be sleeping on Wang Chao's back? Something must have happened. Wang Chao acted like she didn't hear his threat. She continued to say coldly, Where's Wang Dong? Bei Bei snorted coldly. His soul rings rose from his feet. He was really angry now. They had been looking for Huiyuhao for 10 days. They had been seeing Wang Dong's pale face every day. Even he was unhappy with Huiyuhao, a junior that he had always liked. Seeing that Bei Bei had unleashed his soul rings, He Kai-tu immediately jumped backward, and heavy soul cannons appeared on his shoulders. Shu Sanxia took a step forward and unleashed his shield of the Xuanwu turtle. Although only 4 of the members of Shrek's 7 monsters were here, their coordination was still decent. Wang Chao stood there without moving and only looked at them coldly. I won't fight with all of you. It'll only hurt him. Call Wang Dong over. Shu Sanxia snorted furiously. He took a step forward and was about to attack Wang Chao with his shield. At this point, a bright blue streak descended from the sky as a hoarse voice called out, Yuhao, where's Yuhao? Wang Dong descended from the sky and landed several meters in front of Wang Chao. After seeing Wang Dong, Wang Chao was slightly stunned. Her complexion looked very unhealthy, and it seemed that she had become extremely lifeless. Her body was much thinner, and she even looked a little out of shape. Only 10 days had passed. Her life seemed to have diminished. Wang Dong didn't look at Wang Chao. She was fixated on Huiyuhao's body, and exclaimed in sorrow, Yuhao, what happened to you? As she spoke, she rushed towards Wang Chao. She had only taken a glance at him, but had already realized that something wasn't right. Their connection was very close since they had formed martial soul fusion skills together. However, Wang Dong clearly couldn't feel his powerful martial souls in his body right now. Wang Chao lifted her hand to block Wang Dong. Wang Dong was stunned for a moment before looking at her. As their gazes met, Wang Chao saw the look of sadness and heartache in Wang Dong's eyes, while Wang Dong only saw loneliness in Wang Chao's eyes. I'll hand him over to you, but you need to hear what I want to say first, Wang Chao said. Wang Dong said anxiously, What happened to him? Can you tell me after I've taken a look at him? Wang Chao said coldly, Don't worry, he won't die. Wang Dong calmed herself down and nodded. She replied, All right, tell me. No Bei came up beside Wang Dong and interrupted her. Wang Dong's body was very weak now. Everyone believed that Wang Chao had nothing good to say. What if Wang Dong was provoked? Jiang Nannan also rushed behind Wang Dong. Everyone encircled her and treated her like an enemy. Wang Chao said coldly, I won't hand him over unless you let me say my piece. I want to let all of you know what he did. Bei stepped forward and was about to act up, but Wang Dong immediately lifted her arms and shook her head at the rest. Don't be like that. Let her speak. I can handle it. The sad look in Wang Dong's eyes became even more intense. However, she wasn't in the mood to pick on Wang Chao. Hu Yuhao had returned. He had finally returned. Even though she didn't know how he was, he must be fine since Wang Chao claimed that he wouldn't die. It was fine as long as he was alive. It was still better than Tang Ya and Ma Xiaodao, who were both still missing. She had already thrown everything else from her mind. As long as Hu Yuhao was safe, she was willing to accept anything that he had with Wang Chao. The 10 days of waiting had taught her one thing, that she was willing to do anything in exchange for Hu Yuhao's safety. Dong, you are too kind, Bei sighed. However, he didn't go against her wishes. Wang Dong revealed a sad smile and said, It's fine since he has returned. I'm satisfied since he's returned safely. Wang Chao, tell me what you want to say. Wang Chao scanned everyone coldly and said, From your looks, all of you seem to think that I eloped with him. All of you are his good friends. Is he really like all of you imagine him to be? Everyone was stunned by her words. Yes, they had been thinking about what had happened between Hu Yuhao and Wang Chao after they left together. Wang Dong was also stunned. She saw an outraged look in Wang Chao's eyes. Wang Chao said coldly, I feel bad for him. In the past 10 days, he has almost died 3 times. However, he pressed on every time. I tried to stop him from taking risks, but he resisted and continued to proceed stubbornly. Do you really think he eloped with me? Shu Sancha furrowed his brow. How come you left together? He even left without saying anything. Wang Chao replied, he left without saying anything because he was anxious. I don't know how he found out Wang Dong was sick. Shu Sanchi's eyes widened. You're the sick one. Wang Chao focused her gaze, and a sharp light flashed within them. However, she still suppressed her anger. He told me that Wang Dong was sick. In addition, he even said that her life was in danger. That day, he left Shrek Academy on his own. I caught him leaving and pursued him, seeing that he was in a rush. However, who knew that I would end up pursuing him for thousands of miles? That's why I went missing with him. I hadn't expected that he could go to this extent for another person. Do you see the flower on his face? He almost sacrificed his life to bring it back. It's an immortal grass called the yearning heartbroken grass. It can cure her injuries. Wang Dong was stunned. She didn't even know that she was sick or injured. However, Wang Chao sounded very convincing. She also didn't know what to do since Hu Yuhao was in this state. Wang Chao lifted her hand and unbuttoned Hu Yuhao's sleeves. Everyone was shocked when they saw his hands. Hu Yuhao's hands were covered in bandages. The thick bandages were half stained with fresh blood. Do all of you know how this injury came about? In order to pluck the yearning heartbroken flower, he forced himself to swallow spring water that contained ultimate fire to counter the ultimate ice in his body. When his hands cupped the water, they were badly burned. His throat, windpipe and even internal organs were greatly burned from the water. He was on the brink of death. Wang Dong's figure shook slightly. An unhealthy red appeared on her face, and tears streamed down her cheeks. At that point, he still used his eyes to tell me to bring this yearning heartbroken grass back to treat your injury. If not for the fact that I used an herb to preserve his life, he would have died. Wang Chao recounted everything that had happened to the both of them over the past 10 days. After hearing her accounting of events, everyone's expressions changed greatly. Jiang Nannan and Xiao Xiao were even crying. They hadn't expected Hu Yuhao to experience so many ordeals over the past 10 days. He had even been on the brink of death several times before he finally managed to pluck the yearning heartbroken grass. When they heard that the ultimate ice in his body had raged out and the blood that he spat out had frozen up, leaving him no choice but to swallow the blazing sunspring water, Bei Bei, He Kai-tu and Shu Sanxi's eyes also welled up. What kind of love was this? Hua Yuhao used his actions to tell them how much he loved Wang Dong. Wang Dong stopped crying as she heard more and more of what Wang Chao said. Her body was trembling non-stop, shaking uncontrollably. Yuhao, 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 her mind was only filled with his name right now. Yuhao, Yuhao, my Yuhao. For me, you actually, what injury? Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you let me face all this with you? Yuhao. At this moment, Wang Dong was heartbroken. She spat out blood, and a few drops landed on the yearning heartbroken grass on the side of Hua Yuhao's face. The yearning heartbroken grass shook slightly and absorbed the few drops of fresh blood. Following this, a dim red glow emanated from the flower. The red glow formed two rings in the air, which looped over Hua Yuhao and Wang Dong. A weird intent was also released by the yearning heartbroken grass. There were no words, but Shrek 7 monsters and Wang Chao could understand what it meant. It roughly meant together through life and death. The contract of love. If one died, both would die together. The lives of these lovers would be connected. There would be no abandonment, and their love would carry on for eternity. Wang Dong had formed a strange contract with Hua Yuhao at this moment, with the yearning heartbroken grass as a witness. Wang Chao was stunned. She could also sense the intent from the yearning heartbroken grass. Her face turned even more dismal and she looked a little lost. She put Hua Yuhao down carefully, right in front of Wang Dong. He only has you in his heart. Even though we look similar, I was never in his heart. When he plucked the yearning heartbroken grass, I knew that I had fallen in love with this man. I am deeply in love with him. I feel very tormented that I was a step late. There can never be a second woman in his heart. You must take care of yourself for him. You must take care of him, too. The herb that he consumed will help him to recover slowly. However, I'm not sure whether he will be able to fully recover. Wang Chao paused as she finished those words. She took a deep look at Wang Dong and said, "You've won." In his eyes, I was probably never your competitor, and you probably never had any competitors before. Love him properly. Wang Dong received Hua Yuhao carefully. She hugged him as she bowed to Wang Chao. Thank you. Thank you for saving his life. If you need my help one day, I'll do anything to help you. Wang Chao didn't say anything. She only turned and walked away. It was only when the Shrek 7 monsters couldn't see her that her tears started to stream down her face. She quickened her footsteps, as she didn't want others to see her weakness. However, she was also heartbroken. Wang Dong hugged Hua Yuhao and felt the weak undulation of his life aura. She lowered her head slowly and pressed her lips to Hua Yuhao's dry lips. Her lips were very cold and slightly moist. Yuhao, I'm your wife from now on. No matter whether or not you recover, I'll always be your wife. I love this contract. As long as you are alive, I'll wait for you my entire life. If you die, I'll leave with you. In the other world, I'll continue to wait on you. Forever and ever. Yuhao, I love you. Wang Dong's voice was very gentle, but it was the gentleness of her voice that made the rest emotional. Bei Bei, Shu Sanxia, and He Kai-tu couldn't control the tears in their eyes. Jiang Nannan leapt into Shu Sanxi's arms. Xiao Xiao also did the same thing to He Kai-tu. They were bawling their eyes out. Wang Dong didn't cry. There was only a look of gentleness in her big, beautiful eyes. She carefully carried Hua Yuhao and turned around slowly as she looked at the rest. Eldest senior, can I trouble you to find some food? I want to eat some food. Third senior, please help me get the best healing type soul master in the academy. I'll bring Yuhao back first. Even though she still seemed very pale, and her lips were still stained with blood, the look in her eyes shocked the rest of them. She suddenly looked very tough and resolute. Yes, Hua Yuhao was critically injured, and it was unknown whether he would fully recover. Alright, let's work separately. Nan, Xiao Xiao, follow Dong. Bei Bei rubbed off his own tears and started giving out instructions. Wang Dong was also in bad shape right now. With Jiang Nannan and Xiao Xiao following her, they could help her at least. Wang Dong didn't reject his suggestion and didn't rush off, either. She only carried Hua Yuhao and slowly walked over to the shore of the Sea God's Pavilion. Jiang Nannan understood her intentions and quickly summoned a ferry. They made their way to Sea God's Island, before heading into the Sea God's Pavilion. After returning to her room, Wang Dong started to get busy. She got a clean blanket for Hua Yuhao before inviting Jiang Nannan and Xiao Xiao to leave the room. She was trembling slightly as she removed Hua Yuhao's clothes and bandages. After that, she used clean water to wash his entire body before giving him clean clothing. She also rebandaged his wounds. At this moment, she didn't care about her own shyness anymore. Finally, Wang Dong took the yearning heartbroken grass from Hua Yuhao's face and placed it beside his pillow. Elder Xian, Yang Shaozhe, Cai Maya and a few elders from the Sea God's Pavilion quickly made their way over. Hua Yuhao's injuries shocked all of them. When they heard that Hua Yuhao had received these injuries for Wang Dong, they felt a little helpless. For love, he was willing to go to such an extent. Where is this rascal Hua Yuhao? Elder Shen couldn't help but curse. Wang Dong stood up hurriedly and said respectfully, Elder Shen. Elder Shen was furious as he walked into the room. He quickly came to the bedside and pressed his hand against Hua Yuhao's mouth, sensing his condition. He only lifted his hand after a while, he's in a bad state. Elder Shen furrowed his brows and couldn't help but curse, this rascal, why didn't he report something like this to the academy? Donga, who told him that you were injured? Let me take a look. As he spoke, he lifted his hand and pressed it against Wang Dong's shoulder. After sensing for a brief moment, he revealed a weird look on his face. There's no injury, but there's a weird force in your body. It doesn't seem like soul power. However, my powers strangely can't seem to capture it. If we are talking about an internal injury, this must be it. Elder Zhuang, take a look at him. As he spoke, Elder Shen gestured to another elder. This elder was also a member of the Sea God's Pavilion. He cultivated a plant-type martial soul, and was skilled in healing. Elder Zhuang came to the bedside and also pressed his hand against Hua Yuhao's mouth. Soul rings started to rise from his feet. 2 yellow, 2 purple and 5 black rings appeared. He was a titled Doluor. Vibrant-looking green vines spread from his body and moved around Hua Yuhao. Very soon, his entire body was engulfed by the vines. An intense life aura was released by the vines as Elder Zhuang's soul rings lit up. The vines were also shining with different colors of light. After a time, Elder Zhuang retracted the vines. He gently shook his head and said, he's indeed in bad shape. His injuries were very serious. Most importantly, there's a blazing heat in his body that doesn't belong. It clashes with his ultimate ice. Apart from his own ultimate ice soul power, there's also origin energy in his body. It's all very messy. Under such a situation, the ultimate ice can't expel the heat or neutralize it. Furthermore, his internal organs are also badly burned. Honestly speaking, he should have died from such serious injuries. However, there's a force in his body sustaining his life. He must have eaten some herb that's helping him recuperate. It's just that the speed of recuperation is very slow due to the clash between ice and fire in his body. Elder Shen said, what should we do then? Can you treat him? Elder Zhuang shook his head and answered, no. My treatment is mainly carried out by pouring in life power. But his own life power isn't weak, so there's no need for that. In addition, we can't just recklessly treat his injuries. If too much soul power is poured in, the unstable forces in his body might be released, and his life might be in danger. To him, the best treatment is to rest. He'll wake up when the herb heals the injuries in his body, and he'll also be able to control the circulation of his soul power when he wakes up. His injuries will also slowly recover then. It's the same for his hands. It's better for him to recover on his own. Elder Shen asked, will he be able to make a full recovery? Elder Zhuang replied, I can't tell. It's too messy. How could his body accumulate so much origin energy? While it's good stuff, we can't have too much of it. Not only is he gravely injured, he seems to have taken too many tonics. Whether or not he can make a full recovery will be up to him, but I'm sure his life isn't in danger anymore. Elder Shen sighed and commented, this rascal is really worrying. Elder Zhuang, I'll have to trouble you over the next few days. Elder Zhuang nodded and said, don't worry, he's the future pillar of our academy. I'll help him recover no matter what. I'll check on him twice a day from now. As his body's condition changes, I'll adjust my treatment accordingly. Elder Shen sighed and nodded, that would be great. Bei Bei and the rest rushed over at this moment. Bei Bei even brought some food for Wang Dong, a bowl of chicken soup. It was nutritious and easily digestible. As the eldest senior, Bei Bei had always been very meticulous. Wang Dong didn't stand on ceremony. Even though Hua Yuhao was critically injured now, she was in a good mood. It was just that her heart was also aching at the same time. Whatever it was, Hua Yuhao was finally better. At least he was still alive. He did everything for her, which had landed him in this state. As Wang Dong thought of all this, her tears were filled with happiness even though her heart was still aching at his predicament. Tough, she had to be tough. Although she was in pain, she didn't continue crying. She drank the chicken soup to replenish her own energy. However, her eyes never left Hua Yuhao. Elder Shen left with the elders. Jiang Nannan and Xiao Xiao wanted to stay behind to help Wang Dong look after Hua Yuhao, but Wang Dong declined their offer. She told them that she could cope on her own. Bei Bei was relieved after watching her consume an entire bowl of chicken soup and a plate of green vegetables. After all, they were all soul masters, and Wang Dong was even a soul emperor. Although she hadn't been taking care of herself over the past few days, she would recover quickly as long as she was willing to eat and watch her body. After her meal, Wang Dong's complexion improved. She dragged a chair to the bedside and sat down cross-legged on it, entering deep meditation. If she wanted to take care of Hua Yuhao and help him recover, she had to make sure she was fine herself first. Wang Dong was also one of the best young soul masters at Shrek Academy right now. If she remained calm and composed, her abilities weren't inferior to Hu Yuhao's. Over the past 10 days, her internal ordeals and poor health had caused her to become much weaker. After spitting out blood earlier, she was extremely weak right now. After eating, she had to recuperate, too. However, it wasn't always the case that she could enter her deep meditative state at will. After 10 minutes, she reopened her eyes. They were filled with tenderness and heartache. She was unable to calm herself down enough to enter deep meditation. Once she shut her eyes, she thought of Hu Yuhao. Her ears were also echoing with Wang Chao's words. When she recalled how Hu Yuhao drank the boiling water for her, tears would well up in her eyes. Yuhao, you are really silly. You are really silly. She couldn't tolerate her yearning for him. She removed her outer clothes and went over to the bed. She carefully avoided Hu Yuhao's injured hands and laid down beside him. She felt his aura and shut her eyes. It was very weird, but she felt much more peaceful as she rested her body against his. It was an unprecedented sense of tranquility. Hu Yuhao's heartbeat was slightly weak. One had to listen carefully to tell that it was beating. Wang Dong's tears started to dry up. A satisfied smile surfaced on her face. She fell asleep just like that. Very soon, her breathing calmed down. She didn't see the yearning heartbroken grass exuding a dim red light. The gentle red light engulfed their bodies, and its fragrance drifted away and entered their bodies as they inhaled it. Someone else was crying quietly as Wang Dong fell asleep in Hu Yuhao's arms. Wang Chao stood in front of her room and looked at the sky outside, which was getting dark. Her tears started to fall again. It's such a torment loving someone, especially when you know you can't be with that person. Hu Yuhao, would you have loved me like you love her if I had met you first? Why didn't I meet you earlier? Heavens, why do you have to play such a trick on me? Wasn't Wang Dong a guy? This video will end here. Thank you for watching.